Here's some of the NFL injury news we are following on this Monday. Of course, still one game left tonight. Bucs are sending veteran safety Jordan Whitehead for an MRI today. The Bucs are fearing a season-ending torn pectoral muscle. Elsewhere, Eagles defensive end Brandon Graham says his season is done because of a triceps injury. Gardner Minshew's season is also over. He has a broken collarbone, and there's some good news for Panthers tight end Jatavian Sanders. He was released from hospital on Sunday after being carted off the field in a loss to the Chiefs with a neck injury. Let's welcome back CBS Sports HQ injury analyst Marty Jaramillo for more on the injury front, talking about some teams that are bitten by the injury bug. You start with the Niners, suffered their worst ever loss to Green Bay on Sunday, and they did so without quarterback Brock Purdy, who of course has the shoulder injury. Marty, what's the treatment plan for Purdy to try and get him back on the field as soon as possible?
Well, Jeremy, when it comes to injuries and bad luck, well, there's bad luck, and then there's 49ers bad luck. They've been absolutely decimated this whole season. I mean, the list goes on and on. Just add Brock Purdy to that list. He injured his throwing shoulder last week versus Seattle and had an MRI, and thankfully everything negative. It was clean and was trending better, but it started to lock up on him, get tight again, and he was ruled out for the game versus Green Bay. And he had a second MRI on Thursday, and guess what? It was also negative. So what does that mean? No structural damage, but still cannot play. So there's a significant amount of inflammation throughout the supporting structures of his throwing arm. Just to let you know, there are 17 muscles that are at the stability of the shoulder. So any one of them can be the culprit or any combination. So here's what they are left with. He will respond well to various treatments that include hands-on manual therapy, manipulation, high-tech modalities to decrease the inflammation, rest, and meds. All the combination to help them get ready as fast as possible. But with the playoff picture being quite bleak, I expect him to be very conservative, maybe give him 2 weeks off, maybe the IR, or sit him out for the rest of the season. Any one of those choices are in play. But thankfully, no structural damage. He will return with no long-term issues with his throwing arm.
All right, looking elsewhere on the 49ers injury report, offensive tackle Trent Williams has the ankle injury. Marty, he's a big man. Lots of pressure being put on those ankles. How does this staff get the ankle back in playable game shape?
Well, Williams is 36 years old. Father Time is knocking on that door. He hasn't played a full season since he was 25. Diagnosed with a low ankle sprain, which will respond to traditional treatments of rest modality, strengthening, and range of motion. But he does have a history of those ankle sprains, which just delays time. He has tested it versus on the field before the games, and he just can't get into that rhythm. He's also very large. Despite being one of the best offensive tackles in the game, the age is catching up with him. It is a factor. I do expect him to be at least 1 to 2 more weeks. It just takes that much longer when those ligaments from previous injuries are stretched, the scar tissue, and the chronic inflammation. He will be well supported. I do expect him to be back and productive, but everything moves the needle to the right because of the age and because of the previous injuries.
Another star player out for the Niners, linebacker Nick Bosa, has got the oblique slash hip injury. This has been bothering him for a while, but now we're at the point where it's taking time from him, game time. Marty, how do they treat this?
Well, let's clarify exactly what happened. He's already was nursing an oblique injury on one side, and then re-injured the other side. Actually, not a re-injury, a new oblique injury on the opposite side. Now, here's the issue with oblique injuries. They are not a vertical muscle. They are a diagonal muscle that have multiple attachments to all the ribs. Now, that creates a tremendous amount of tension at all times on those healing muscles. And because they happen at different times, they will heal at different rates. Remember that issue with Christian McCaffrey. 2 Achilles injuries, healing at different rates. That just delays issues and creates a lot of confusion for the medical staff and for the player himself on whether or not they are getting better. So it's a real concern that now they are opposite muscles, the same injury to both muscles, and the issue is the core muscles, particularly the obliques, are in such demand with the rapid side-to-side movement of a defensive end. This is going to be a tricky one. I expect him to miss at least 2 more weeks, possibly more. But with the San Francisco 49ers playoff picture in question, he has the time to get better. Very, very tricky situation. No long-term issues here, extremely painful, but he will get better.
Niners have never made the playoffs, being 5-6 or worse after their first 11 games. I guess the good news for them in the NFC West, they're only a game back, given the way that division has been so competitive this season. All right, elsewhere, Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence has the shoulder injury, has missed the past 2 games, returning to practice today, and the team says they'll evaluate him. Marty, what does that evaluation process look like for Lawrence?
Well, you have throws at different speeds, different distances, and also different angles. So not only will they be examining them at strength at different angles, range of motion at different angles, and obviously sport-specific throws in different scenarios of the game. So we've reported on Trevor so often. He is such a gamer, says very little about how he's actually feeling. So I expect him to actually play. I expect him to do well on these assessments. He does work very hard behind the scenes. It wasn't a serious injury that he sustained, no major structural damage. So it's strictly a pain management situation at this point. But we know that pain can affect strength and can affect stability and also power on his throws. So that's where the testing involves. Power, strength, range of motion at all the different angles, all the different scenarios of his throwing arm.
Jags play the Texans this coming Sunday. All right, let's talk about a couple wide receivers here to finish off, starting with Philadelphia wide receiver Devonta Smith, who has a hamstring injury. Philly riding high, 7-game win streak for them. Marty, how tough is it to treat the hamstrings in season?
Well, Devonta Smith, former Heisman Trophy winner, has only missed 3 games in a 4-season career. These hamstring issues are epidemic situation for wide receivers in the NFL. Why? Well, the quadriceps that accelerate, that give them that elite speed, basically overpower the hamstrings that provide the brakes. And that's the issue. There's always this imbalance, and it's so hard to level it out. He's already been dealing with this minor hamstring injury that is just lingering. And the Eagles know if you do not treat this conservatively, you are left with a long-term problem. Why? Well, the hamstrings are difficult to treat. They inherently have poor blood supply, so that delays healing. The tears are usually much, much deeper, very difficult to get in with our hands to treat it, right? And they just take that much longer. They just don't respond to treatment as well as other areas. Now, he's already had a lot of treatment over the last few weeks. I expect him to get another week to nurse that injury. They haven't been, let's say, affected as much without him. They've had that 7-game winning streak. Eagles fans are going crazy. So I expect them even 1 or 2 weeks out won't put the team in jeopardy.
And lastly, wide receiver Josh Downs from Indianapolis has a shoulder injury, left the game yesterday, avoided a major injury like an AC joint sprain or broken clavicle, which is something that can happen landing the way that he landed. He's considered week to week. So what's the treatment plan for him, Marty?
Yeah. Great point there. When he landed really hard on that, and so many structures can be involved. Yes, he avoided the AC sprain, but the contusion itself, that trauma, when you do land, does affect all the supporting structures. The rotator cuff, the capsule, other tendons, other supporting ligaments like the AC joint may not be separated, but the contusion itself can lead to a lot of inflammation, weakness, and a little bit of instability. Week to week is the right designation, but the issue is always Monday, Tuesday, when the pain, swelling, and tightness really set in to really make a diagnosis. See if you probably rest Wednesday, try to play and practice on Thursday, and they'll make the decision on Friday. I suspect he does play on Saturday.
Yeah, at this point, they're saying considered a long shot to play this week versus the Patriots, but we'll see how the week progresses. CBS Sports HQ injury analyst Marty Jaramillo breaking down injuries of note Monday in the NFL. And just a reminder, HQ is your home for all things NFL every NFL Sunday. Highlights, analysis, interviews, it's all here, and it's all free.